Good morning, love, and good morning, light. Well, it's morning here in the land of the languages of lights. I guess that really is everywhere. Thanks for being with us this morning. I'm Wendy, if you're new to the channel, and Dave, my husband Dave's sitting right here with me. And
Good day.
I was thinking about where I wanted to start. So I think part of the information is important in that Dave and I enjoy sleeping outside in the tent. The tent's right behind me. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because it seems like the more we sleep outside, the more things are activated for a lot of reasons. A lot of it is because of the bird song. And you've got the crow, and I was just noticing the crow, because those are all languages of light. The light, the light of all creation, everything's been created, speaks its language, including that crow. And we know that. We have animal spirits. We are able to speak to anything we want to, including collectives. So there was a few things that were activated in me this morning, a couple of different things. Part of it was from dream state, and in the morning, we're still close to that vibration of that dream state. One of the first things I heard was, including the other morning, which is why I wanted to bring this up. A couple of mornings now, I've woken up and I look at Dave, and it's like I can see what we were doing in our dreams, or he will say something about his dream and it will trigger something in my dream. And part of this also has to do with open contact. So it really is about opening contact to the idea that you are already having this conscious, and what do you want to call it? I say conscious because we say subconscious, but that just means it's your whole consciousness. I think we think about it as our subconsciousness, which is kind of lower or inside of us, but that's not really what it is. Your subconscious is really what's driving the whole train, really. And that subconscious is constantly connected to everything. So one of the first things I hear the last couple of mornings is there was a new race of beings that was introduced to us through Lisa Royal Holt called the Mala. And they live here on Earth, under the water, underneath the area, I believe what she said, the Philippines. Is that correct?
Yeah, in that area.
In that area. And they have bases underwater. And everything happened.
I'm not sure if they use the term bases.
Or not bases.
I think they built their civilization
Yes.
underwater.
Right. That's a better, and I don't want to misrepresent what she said.
And they do not interact with the humans here on Earth. They have not until just now.
So often I get this vision of us, me and Dave, that he is part of that civilization. And why wouldn't it be? So because these things happen for a reason. In other words, when any of us come in contact with another person, whether it's a channel, a channeler, other beings, you're connecting to other beings, or you're wanting to connect to other beings through another being, or a medium, or a channel, whatever the case may be, it's happening to you for a reason, because it's showing you part of your breadcrumbs. So many of us are asking ourselves, well, who are we? What are we made of? What's our DNA? Who is our star family? And that's a big answer. But the idea is, this came into our reality for a reason. So if we create our own reality, Dave and I created this reality where we were in a circumstance where there was a channel who brought this idea to us, this race of beings that lives here on Earth. And I already know that it's because there must be some connection. So I don't necessarily need to know all the details of what that connection is, because those will unfold. They will unfold in our dreams. They will unfold with conversations between Dave and I. They will unfold as we share information with all of you. And the only reason I'm even mentioning this at all is because I believe Lisa's already put this out to the public. And it came through in a workshop, and then I believe she's now sharing it out to the world. So, of course, now I'm getting all this vibrational tingles and stuff, because I know that my wanting to share this information, and this wasn't even what I wanted to started to share. That's how this happens when you start to share the things that you're thinking about and dreaming about. So I started to share something with Dave about the Prism Collective, which was really about what this conversation was about. And then I started getting these visions. Like, I looked at him and I was like, oh my God. And then he said something about his dream, and I thought, oh, we were there. Like, because we're excited about it. And I think there's some connection with him. When I look at him, I think of them. And so it was like I felt like, oh, we were with them. Like, we were exploring with them, that they're allowing us, because they really don't want to mess with us. And I say, they don't want us to interfere with their business. And they don't want to interfere with our business. And that's a different conversation. But
we were talking about collectives.
Yes, we were talking about.
So the conversation started about the Prism Collective, and you sort of having visions of the idea of the collective, and specifically the Prism Collective, but just in general how collectives work. And we were discussing the idea of how the excitement of the different ideas forms collectives. And just like we have Facebook groups or book club groups, or anything that you could imagine, that's a group of people, individuals getting together to share in their excitement on a specific topic. That's what a collective is on a greater consciousness level. And the collective idea, and certainly the Prism Collective idea, is just one of those things. And it's not that necessarily the Prism Collective is excited about prisms. It's that the prisms are a way that we are manifesting the physical experience of the excitement of the collective idea of prisms and all the things that prisms represent.
So with the collective idea, I was just getting to that. With the collective idea and my dream and visiting with the Mala and being on their ship and exploring their world, that is the collective of all of us who are having a collective consciousness experience about wanting to open contact with other beings and civilizations, not only in other worlds and stars, but we are now learning there's a lot of civilizations right here on our own planet that we haven't connected with. So there's that overall collective consciousness of those of us who enjoy the idea and are excited about the idea of opening contact with other species. And then, of course, there's all of the collectives and all of the consciousnesses and all of the star systems that are also in that frequency, and of course are, participating in all of that. So that in itself is its own collective consciousness. We are, I guess, would you call that the open contact collective consciousness. And that's pretty cool. And I never really thought of it that way. So the Prism collective consciousness came to me many years ago when I very first started channeling, and I started my Languages of Lights channel. And a lot of things were happening with me. A lot of things were opening up to me. A lot of channeling was opening up to me. A lot of different species and collectives. And one of the ones was the Prism Collective. And one of the reasons this came up was because I saw a comment from like years ago, maybe 7 years ago. Somebody was asking about the Prism Collective because I had was doing videos about it. And for some reason this morning, and maybe it was because of the sun rising and I started hearing them and talking about the Prism Collective consciousness and what is that exactly. And they started explaining a little bit about how I started seeing visualizations because I was asking them more questions. So for example, for me, the Prism Collective would come to me in different ways. Like, for example, a prism literally in the sky. I'd be just standing there and a prism would literally appear over my head. Or if I was driving and a prism would just appear and go for miles and miles and miles and miles while I'm driving.
And rainbows.
And rainbows, exactly. So what they were explaining to me this morning was, and Dave and I were talking about prisms of light and color and frequency, because the frequency band, how did you explain that? About, you were talking about the the separation.
Light. Yeah, the source of
the
light.
First source of light.
Yeah, goes the mechanical prism, which could be, it's glass or some kind of crystal type of thing, and then it separates the light into its constituents of wavelengths. So one of the ideas, of course, of a prism is expanding, and I first used the word separating the light, but I really want to say expanding the light.
Yes.
So they could be individuated and observed in their own wavelengths. So if the source of light contains all wavelengths, then a prism would separate it, and you would see, what would look like a rainbow kind of effect, where all the bands of color you would visually see. The way science uses that idea is if it's looking at a particular star or even a particular element, for instance, and you put the light that it reflects through a prism, you see all the bands of colors, of frequencies that are being reflected back. And the bands that are missing in that visualization represent the bands of light that object contains. So you could look at elements, for instance, such as hydrogen, and hydrogen will have a particular signature of colors when it's reflected, and the bands that are missing are the frequencies that are contained in hydrogen. And we were sort of expanding on that.
That was it, and that was a perfect that was exactly how the whole message came through. After that was, they literally showed, and for those of you who know what I'm talking about the Pink Floyd album, that's kind of a little bit of my visual right now in my head. So if that helps a little bit on a lot of levels, but so that just came to me. But so the Prism Collective was actually showing me the visualization of us, and you can see yourself as a crystal, if you like, a triangle crystal, with a prism going through it. Source energy is the light that's shining through us, this prism. Our, as Dave just said, our signature colors and frequency, and expanding that light out, and we are the prism in which source light energy is coming through, and we then expand out our light into a prism of light, and those are our different interests. That's another how we got into the subject as well, because we all have all these different, and I'm showing my fingers as if they were like rainbow beings. There's birds flying everywhere around us right now, literally right outside the tent. So they were showing us that each one of these bands are like our interests, and how we expand out those interests out into, you know, our universe in our perfect signature, our perfect colors, our perfect prism. They're also showing me about how when we see a prism, we are seeing their excitement, their reflection in this prism, however it is you see it. Maybe it's just something shining off of, like in my studio upstairs that I love. I've got crystals hanging in the window so that the light shines through, and that there's prisms all over the walls. That is my invitation, because those prisms are they're a third thing. They are its own consciousness. And I know that's really tough for us to wrap our minds around. It's like, well, wait a minute, it's just a light going through a thing and then it's making a prism on the wall. Yes and no. It's that prism is a collective consciousness that's excited to show itself in that moment, in that way for us. And it reminds us about all of the lights, all of the frequency bands that we are, and how we spread that light out. And then when Dave said that about the light in between, that's when they sort of inserted, and I say inserted into the idea that between those light bands and those interests of ours is the God light, the invisible light, the where there becomes no sort of differentiation, but there is, but there isn't. It's like a melding from one color to the next, kind of like a rainbow does, but there is a differentiation somewhere. And that is our God light. That is and it also displays as I'm hearing like a singular vibration of source that nothing can see. I don't really understand that either, but they're saying that nothing can see, but it runs through everything. That only source itself. See, now I'm getting all weird and emotional. And so this light is the source, is the light of source that's in all of us. That's the reflective source. That's the reflection back to source. Everything that we do, that's the reflection back to source. That's why it's a mirror. It's
one of the coolest things, this idea of all that is, and all the reflections of source, and the holographic nature of not just physical reality, but of reality itself, is that the God particle, so to speak, that all that is, the essence of God, is contained within all things all the time. So even though we might be looking at a single band on a frequency range, and whatever scientific terms you want to use, this particular wavelength and that particular wavelength, and absorption qualities and all that, the God essence is in all of it fully.
Yes.
And
yes,
just like, the idea that we contain God, that the God particle is in us, is in all our cells, and is in all the ideas that we can make up when we're dreaming up this physical reality. It's all just a different version, reflection of the God particle. And it's often a little difficult to think of the idea of infinity, but if you since we're talking about prisms,
yes,
you could zoom in on a prism anywhere you want. You're never going to get past the prism. You might zoom in closer and closer to a particular wavelength, but there's not going to be an area where there is nothing. You aren't going to see the nothing, but yet the nothing always exists also. the God particle, which is all things, is not going to show up as a color. So you could sort of think of the infiniteness, and also the idea of the reflections of source, and the because we're all prisms acting
Yes.
as reflections of source.
Yes. And that's the point too. We're all prisms, you guys.
So the idea of the separation of the colors and the separation of the prisms, you use that same idea even in the idea of dimensions and densities, and all that gets applied the same exact way, which is also, one of the excitements of the Prism Collective, because really all things are a different idea of a prism. And as you think of densities as physical densities,
Yes, because this translates into that densities and
yes,
dimensions, and
so they're also infinite. So we might label densities 1, 2, 3, or 4, but there's an infinite number of densities that exist between each density. And we also talk about dimensions, and there's an infinite number of dimensions that exist within each density, and there's an infinite number of densities that exist within each dimension, and
of which we just can't calculate. We can't comprehend. Not really.
and it's really all just this awesome idea.
Yes. And that was really the idea that was the idea that I was presented with this morning. And so these are the kind of things that Dave and I actually talk about in the morning when we wake up and we're sitting around having our coffee. And it's always so much more powerful because we do as much as possible, even if we're not sleeping outside. We sit outside every morning with our coffee. And actually our little doggy Abby's probably getting ready to want to come and join us.
And we make these videos because we're excited about these ideas. Of course, when we wake up, we're, maybe we were talking about this in our dream state and our other consciousness states, and we're bringing some of this information to this reality. And a lot of times, I don't know who needs to hear this, but
I know.
But it's information that we're receiving. We're sometimes it's through direct channeling, sometimes it's through downloads that we're receiving just while we're talking about it, sometimes it's just while Wendy and I are just open to the information flow, that it comes to us as words and visions or whatever, but we're excited to share it because it's exciting to us, and maybe someone else watching is excited to hear about it too. And even if our information isn't accurate in how it resonates with you, it is going to open a door for you to think about something in whichever way works best for you. And also the understanding that in every moment we have created an understanding that works for ourselves in that moment, but we are ever expanding. And certainly it's a choice. Expansion is always a choice, but as you choose to expand, these ideas open up to whole new understandings. So we could be sitting here in this now moment talking about all these things, and it opens up doorways and gateways and vortexes of information that all of a sudden opens up a whole new understanding of everything. And as we are increasing our frequency, we're opening up to more and more bands of information, and we're even within our own reality, the science reflects back to us the frequency, vibration, and excitement that we are operating in. So we're finding out science is finding out that they were wrong completely about lots of different things.
What a surprise!
And that's never going to end, because we're making up the science, and science is really just a reflection.
Science is only the reflection.
So, always keeping in mind, and this is sort of a lesson of ascension, always keep in mind that what you think you know today is only just the beginning. And there's never an ending to your understanding, and it's always going to change. And it's also a lesson in how, when you're interacting with others that have their own understanding and beliefs and truths, that it's true for them too. And it might have been our truth, what we would call a year ago, but we've moved past that because we've realized there's way more to it than it seems, and there always will be way more, and it's never ending, and you can never get there. So there's only this now moment, and it's always the most important moment. And one of the things we strive to do is enjoy that moment while it's here.
Seize the moment. Yes, seize that day, seize that moment. That's why we end up doing all these. That's why we end up doing all these impromptu things, and that's why it was funny too when he was talking about following your highest joy and being in that moment, because it was like we're having this conversation, and all of a sudden I'm like, I think I need to record this. I think we need to record this, and then there we are trying to figure out where to sit. Because I didn't want to move, he didn't want to move, and I'm like, well, let's just do this, And so we're switching back and forth here. So that's kind of a new thing. I've never really done it that way, but we wanted to
let us know if it makes watching the video more exciting,
or whatever, anything else. But I was thinking about how how the Prism Collective here is shining itself in and receiving and sending this information, and you guys are all a part of that, and the infiniteness and the connectedness of all of this. Even though I can't explain it necessarily in words, I know it and I feel it implicitly. And that idea of what we were talking about receiving this information about that idea, and all we're doing is sharing what we're hearing, and that is what isn't that what we all do anyway? Because we're all channeling, we're all connected to a higher and all of the consciousnesses, and wanting to just share this information. I was just laughing about how just moving around and figuring out where to sit, and I don't even know where I'm going with that, other than it's kind of like, don't worry too much about all of that. You know what I mean? If you've got something to share, seize the moment. I was listening to a clip about children channeling and parents channeling with their children and being comfortable with that. And now right away that's coming out in my mind to mention. Our children, they're saying, don't unlearn your children. Don't unteach. What am I trying to say?
Well,
don't teach out of them their innate knowing, and we can listen to the children because they will show us the new ways to connect with these consciousnesses. I'm not even sure why that came out.
So apparently it's important for us to understand as a civilization that part of the design built into children growing up in a civilization is an automatic absorption of the civilization's belief system.
Yes, good point.
And it's designed to allow a being who starts off as spirit that's coming into a physical reality to be able to acclimate to whatever physical reality exists, whatever civilization they've decided to participate in. And at least with our civilization, for whatever reason, we are now moving toward higher understanding, but there are a lot of beliefs that we've adopted, that we've uh, automatically uh, taken in and bought into, so to speak, from our parents, from our teachers, from our civilization, from the things we watch on TV, from the news, from what people that we would consider authorities are teaching us, and we're absorbing all of these things. And children now are starting to question those things automatically, but up until now, it was an automatic function of just how, as spirits experiencing this reality, have agreed to do, and that's to absorb the things in the society and the civilization. So children, uh, up until age 10, 12, 16, are still, we're all fully capable of full connections all the time, of channeling all the time. It's not even there isn't really a separation of the idea of channeling versus not channeling. It's just happening all the time. And some of us are moving as adults, are moving to the understanding that is really the norm, and it should be expected as a norm, and everyone is capable of it if they choose to want to uh, have a consciousness that works that way. And Wendy was reminded, and we were reminded of the idea that your children are already fully capable of that, and it's only by convincing them that they're not, that they lose that ability. And
Exactly.
these days the children aren't probably going to buy into those beliefs, and they might pretend to, you know, not be talking to dead people and ghosts and spirits and angels and so forth, but uh, they're all capable, and as young children, all of us have always been capable of those things. And I think it's a relatively new thing that society has shunned that, and that's going away. I mean, we see it on TV, we see it on the news, that it's now being more and more accepted that it is a part of uh, our natural way and no longer a supernatural power. So,
I was laughing because I'm hearing that, of course, as the parents are raising their vibrations and even the grandparents, that child is downloading all of that information, not the old stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it's not, because it's part of who we are as parents. We also contain the old stuff. But what I'm saying is they're able to vibrate in a way that how are they explaining it to me? That they're only going to be vibrating in the world with that new vibration, because that is more their core vibration. So the parents and the grandparents that are becoming more openly conscious aware, the children are now different because of that. That's how the whole society changes. That's how a whole generation changes, is now the children that are consecutively being born are higher and higher vibrational beings also, because we have agreed that we're going to be facilitating that higher vibrational being. And now my children, I speak now only from a hybrid parent standpoint, because my children are older and grown. They're full, long time adults. And but I also know now that what I'm doing now, this work that I'm doing now, and I call it work because it's anyway, my awareness now, because everything's quantum, is also changing. I believe the structure of my own children's vibration. And does that even make sense? That as I change now, I'm changing my version of them I guess. I know this gets really quantum and complicated, so maybe I'll just stop there.
Mhm.
But because I get, it's hard for me to put into words what I'm getting. Um, but I think that we all get the drift. You
So
know.
I just found it interesting, and we've talked about this before, just about the children, and 49 days is the point where the pineal is developed enough
Thank you for
to
clarifying that.
connect uh, the physical expression to the spiritual connection. And uh, I immediately thought, well, 7 times 7, that's a 77.
And the Bashar, uh, that 7 week program is 7 weeks. It's 49.
7 weeks
7 weeks
of 7 days. 7 7.
Yep.
And I just looked up, in numerology, angel number 77 is a powerful symbol that represents spiritual growth, personal development, and guidance from the guardian angels.
Wow.
So
That makes
just
sense.
thinking about it, that's the point where you are now embodied and connected as a spirit, and now you're growing in the physical. You're now growing with the physical and your spirit connected together. And of course, your personal development means also you're starting to absorb these belief systems that exist around you, and you absorb them by, as we spoke about, those prisms. So the people around you, their
Yes.
belief systems are part of their aura, so to speak, which is
Yes.
a prismatic representation. So it's not even that the parents are teaching them verbally these things.
Exactly.
It just automatically absorbs from the auric fields of the people around them. And so, of course, personal development begins, and guidance from guardian angels, because you're still connected, and your guardian angels and guides are always with you. But I think, in those early development stages, you're still connected to them. You're still talking with them. You're still deciding what you want to do, how you want to do it. And many times, I think Bashar has even said just the idea that sometimes a spirit wants to just experience that part of the physical experience, and not even the birth part. So it's all very synchronistic.
It sure is. My mind is reeling right now, just thinking about all of this information and how it's all so deeply connected, and how we, and each and every one of us, we put together our own dots. Our synchronicities are always personal, because they're perfect for us in the perfect timing. And yet I find it so interesting how so many of us all share some of the same synchronicities, but just the idea that we're open to the idea that synchronicity is the law, the way of being in the flow, let go and let God, all of those things that we've been told. It's physics. It's, it's spirits, but spirit is physics. Consciousness created physics. It's like, so it can't not be all connected. So I hope that sharing these things just simply helps all of you give yourself, once again, permission to imagine, explore. You're not crazy. This is who we are. We are multi-dimensional, multi-prismatic, multi excitement beings. And as we were talking about the colors, even, and Dave's talking about the colors itself, if anybody knows things about like colors and color wheels and Pantone colors and all of these other things, each of us also, see, I'm getting all tingly again. Each of us, we also know that within the red spectrum are probably an infinite number of hues in one color. one color. So we can't begin to imagine our infiniteness.
And it's interesting because I'm familiar with computers
Yeah,
and printing.
it's a good.
I've spent a lot of time,
What's a good analogy?
in publishing kind of electronic and
I was in
computer
the printing
publishing.
business for a while.
So we also know that not all colors can be represented in print.
Yes.
On the computer screen.
And I was going to say that too, that we can't even see all the colors.
There are, like, as you mentioned, Pantone colors. There are Pantone colors, which is basically
well, you guys can look it up. But
a designation of color strips.
Yes.
They're actual numeric codes that represent the exact color.
Yes.
So I could pick a Pantone color. I'm just going to say 252, which might be a light blue. And I could tell the computer when I want to print something that it's Pantone 252. It's not going to look 100% like the color on the screen because the monitors are incapable of representing it exactly. Yet when you go to print it, the printer, using different sets of color combinations, might be able to reproduce Pantone 252. But I could pick a color on the screen that might be an RGB color that is comprised of a certain percentage of red, green, and blue that can't actually be printed on a printer that doesn't have red, green, and blue print.
Right,
ink.
Exactly.
And we know typically the printers they're typically CMYK. You have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And those are all combined in a different way to get a certain color, but they can't show all the colors either. And now they have printers that have CMYK and RGB to get exactly the colors that you want to have.
Talking about acronyms.
But you're never gonna exactly match the colors, and because they're reflective. And now we're talking about paper. What's it going to be printed on?
Yeah.
The reflective qualities of the paper affect what we visually see. So all of this mumbo jumbo really just is about the idea that there's an infinite number of colors. There's an infinite number of perceiving the colors. There's an infinite number of reflections and ways that you could see those reflections. And we get to be excited about expressing those things in any way that we want to. And we were watching a channel last night, someone I've never seen before. I don't want to say a new channel, but someone who was channeling the Hathors and
Hathor,
I believe
Sasani, couple different
so things. I don't remember exactly who was coming through at that moment. They were talking about the idea that when you're excited about a certain thing, particularly them, so let's say you're excited about Sasani or excited about the Hathors or Hathor specifically, the energies that are that collective energy recognize the prismatic pattern that you are putting out, and it doesn't matter where you are. It's not like, you have to be near them, or they're looking at it's transmitted to the universe, and when they recognize that pattern, they get excited to participate. And that's sort of how, in a quantum way, this connection to the excitement of these collective ideas all work. And when you sync up the colors, you're now connected to everything that matches those colors, and depending on how open you want to be to infinite knowledge and wisdom and collective information, you gain access to that information. And there's an infinite number of opinions that exist on each of those items. So you might have a collective of the Hathors, for instance, but there's also an infinite number of ideas that exist within that excitement collective as well. So
and when you tap into one, you get to tap into all of that,
and you get to decide what you like, what you don't like, and you're only going to receive the information about that filters through your own belief systems. And it's all pretty exciting, I gotta say.
Sorry, guys. Had to clear my. We've been talking a lot the last couple of days.
And as we often say, we could talk about this on
We
and
could
on and
talk
on
about
and
this.
on all
We
day.
could just have
We
a
do.
constant 24/7 feed. We could. We just walk
don't.
by and keep talking.
We just don't have the camera on all day.
So anyway, I could keep. Actually, I could keep. I get so much more information as we're talking. It's like Dave said, you could just keep talking and talking because it's just once the faucet is open and you're aware. But I wanted to say the last thing about the colors, and I was thinking about how we have reduced it down to also which one of those colors would represent our chakra system. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Oh, and I hear Puppy. Yep, she's up. She's ready to come down. So there we are. That's the perfect timing. And I could hear her in my heart too. I was like, she's up. She wants to come up. That within our chakra system, and in between all of that, if we want to look at it that way, and you can visualize this any way you want, but the colors that we supposedly don't see in between our chakra system is our God particle. That's just it. That is the light that runs through us, that maybe one day that lens is shining more fully through one chakra or another. And when we talk about alignment, what are we really talking about? What does alignment mean? I think a lot of people think of it as, all my chakras are in order. They're all in a line. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means maybe that you're in harmony and that all your rainbow is in perfect alignment. But then again, I also hear that you're never not in perfect alignment. This is the thing. We are never not in perfect alignment. We always are. We just get to experience we're not. And that
we're so powerful we could pretend that some of our light is not shining.
Yes. But know that God light within you and those God particles are shining all of the hues of all of those colors that we see and don't see. We are the prisms. That God light shines through each and everything that's ever been and ever will be, because there is no other way. That's what ascension is remembering all of those things. That God light is shining through each and every person, each and every individual, each and every everything, each and every collective consciousness. It's all shining through, whether you see it or not. And you, as Dave was saying about paper and printers and colors, you get to perceive it all the ways you want to in any given moment. Sometimes it's CMYK, sometimes it's RGB, and sometimes it's Pantone, and sometimes it's you realize you're seeing the infinite, even though you can't see it with your eyes. So with that said, the Prism Collective just wants to say thank you for engaging in this way, in this excitement.
And of course, we're always channeling.
Yes.
We're always bringing through higher consciousness information. However, I gotta say, it's pretty exciting for me, and I think Wendy, I could speak for Wendy too, it's pretty exciting for both of us to share with you all this information and to talk with you about this and to talk about this kinds of information, even without actively, consciously making what you might think is an external connection to something outside of us, but what we come to learn is there's nothing outside of us.
No.
But it's very exciting to talk about this kind of thing, and that excitement, without needing to connect to some higher information, is what allows the higher information to come through and join us in that excitement. And the sharing of it is really the basis for all the excitement. And we're excited. I mean, I guess I could sit here and talk to the forest about printing and and stuff like that. And I would still be excited to think about it, but I don't know if I would talk about it. And yeah, I guess nature is excited about that as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So
they're very excited.
but sharing with you really enhances the excitement, and we have to remember it's a complete kit. And also, if
Yeah.
we're excited to talk about it, if we're excited about it, someone else is also excited to hear it, and being able to make a video and share it in that way is also exciting for us.
Very.
And it's exciting to hear back from you because, of course, you create a reflection and you like to look in the mirror and see the reflection. So it's exciting, when we see that you might be interested in it, or even that you're not interested in it. That's just as exciting too. So thanks for letting us share.
And thanks for sharing that, Dave. And that reminded me too that the everything is very excited when we participate in it, and it recognizes, like the trees, the flowers, and everything around us, that it gets to see itself through our reflection of our appreciation of it. And I think anybody who has ever touched a tree or a flower or something, and you get teared up, you get emotional, you feel something you don't understand, and we hug trees because we're connecting with them. And so all the collectives, as Dave mentioned, are very excited to connect with all of us. And hang on just a second. Okay, I thought I'd just join Dave for a second and say thank you to all of you, and thank you to Dave. And see, that's why I love you, because we get to talk about all of this stuff. And I will just say that this right here is just another dream for me, another vision come true, that I can do this with someone that is as passionate about it as I am, and who's loving and supportive, and taking it as high as we can take it, as far as we can take it, until we can't take it anymore. And somehow we still we haven't found that, we haven't taken it as far as we can take it, like, at all. So that's kind of fun, that it's like, it's not even over. It's like every day that we learn something new, it's just a whole new beginning. So, whatever that means to you, and however that might inspire all of you. And as always, we just share because we love to share. And it is always in divine and honor and grace that we connect with all of you in any way that we do. And we know that whether you just watch and walk through your world, that you are new, you are changed. And it's always about you're changed because you've just learned something more about yourself. That's all. Something new about you. And that's what makes all that is very, very excited to have your light be its reflection, and receive all of that back. It's like sending Source, God, a comment. Sending Source a comment back, going, this is what I did today, and this is what I love, and thank you, and all of that. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that, because we gotta go get Puppy. So I love you guys. Share anytime if you ever need to get a hold of us. Of course, my website address is below in the description. So thanks, you guys. Love you.
Thank you. Love
Bye.
you.